Okay, I hope this records perfectly. I know there's something wrong with the microphone in this, and after about 5 minutes, my voice becomes very muffled. I'm going to speak on this book. I'm going to actually read a part of it because I know there's a lot of people out there that just don't know about autism and Asperger syndrome and the differences between neurotypical people and people with autism. So I'm going to comment on this book here. This is just the sleeve. I actually have the book over here. And then I finally got Tony Atwood's book, Complete Guide. It's really big. I just got this in the mail just, I think, yesterday. So I'm going to read on page 87. Um, Executive function in AS. To meet our goal of learning about an AS-NT cognitive differences, we need to understand other ways in which cognitive styles in individuals with AS differ from those with NT. An important difference involves the ability known as executive function. Executive function is the ability to organize activities, to complete tasks efficiently, or to put them differently, to plan and carry out the steps necessary to complete a task or behavior. It is the ability that lets us learn from experience and not get stuck doing things that are counterproductive, such as spending time playing computer games when you're supposed to be at the computer to write a work report. We know the executive function comes easily for NTs, whereas individuals with AS tend to have problems with it. Executive function is based on a number of mental abilities. To start with, it requires cognitive flexibility, which is the ability to consider different possible responses. Executive function also requires the ability to identify what is relevant and to be able to not act on ideas that are not useful or important in this particular situation. Executive function requires that you be able to learn from the experience and to adjust your behavior based on feedback from the situation. It means you must remember the rules about what is appropriate and what is not, and make the right decision for the event. Executive function means that you are able to keep the goal in mind at all times, that you're able to identify each step needed to achieve it. Individuals with AS tend to have problems with a number of skills required for executive function, especially when they are young, are likely to have serious problems organizing their activities and getting things done in an efficient way. To the extent that people with AS are impaired in their capability for executive function, they will have difficulty managing their lives. Cognitive skills required for executive function: having cognitive flexibility, recognizing what is relevant to the situation, learning from experience, holding in mind and using rules appropriate to the situation, holding a goal in mind at all times, identifying and executing each step needed to reach a goal. Let me comment. In my 20s and in my teenage years, I notice I have a problem with executive function as it relates to experiences and learning from my own experiences. Most people learn from their own experiences. Me, I'm a little slow because I cannot generalize. It's very difficult for me to generalize. Just an example. Maybe I spoke too loud at a public place. And maybe I embarrassed someone because I spoke so loud. Just say it was a birthday party or something. Maybe it was a store, and I just spoke too loud. The general rule is when you're in public, you don't speak very loud. You don't have to whisper, but you don't speak loud. You tone it down a little bit, enough for the person next to you to hear what you're saying, but you don't have to whisper. You don't have to do it like that. That's the general rule. Me, on the other hand, I would say something like this. Okay, I know when I'm at birthday parties, don't speak loud. Or I'd say, I know when I'm at Home Depot, you don't speak loud. That is very, very specific. It is hard for me to pull out and see the general thing happening in the situation. And I've had to have situations play over and over and over and over again because I didn't get the general thing that was happening, and I had to learn the hard way. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm learning this when I should have learned this stuff when I was in my teens. That's the big issue. Let me continue reading. AS and a lack of flexibility. A key skill in effective executive function is the capability to be cognitively flexible. NTs are able to consider many alternatives, but individuals with AS find it difficult to be flexible. Once individuals with AS have focused on something, it is hard for them to consider anything else. This is true whether it concerns just thinking of different ideas or something more critical. People with AS tell us once they begin thinking about something or become involved in something, especially if it interests them, it is difficult, sometimes impossible, for them to shift attention and think about or do something else. This problem may involve something as simple as looking at a flower or something that has broad consequences for the entire family. The reason that it is so difficult for people with AS to shift focus or shift set, as it is often called, is not known. People with AS usually talk about the problem of not being able to shift set as if it is not under their control. They report that at times, even if they want to, they cannot stop what they are doing and get involved with something else. Whatever the cause of this lack of cognitive flexibility, it interferes with the executive function ability of the person with AS, since executive function requires that the individual be flexible and consider alternatives in his or her planning. Yes, I have often done the same thing, especially if I have a thought in my head and I need to write it down because I am writing a report. Very difficult for me to get up in the middle of a thought and take care of the dogs, even if it's just for 30 seconds or 2 minutes. I will have to complete that thought. The thought could be one sentence. The thought can be 5 sentences. I must complete that thought before I can get up and take care of the dogs. Let me skip. I'm going to go to page 156. Being overwhelmed with feelings. As we have seen a number of times, people with AS may have polar opposite experiences. Some may have trouble recognizing or even experiencing their feelings, while others may have such intense feelings they become overwhelmed. What can people with AS do when they are feeling overwhelmed by emotions and are having trouble managing their feelings? 3 ways a person with AS can cope with being overwhelmed by feelings. 1. Practice relaxing by using deep breathing. Yoga is a great way to learn this, or any relaxation technique. I'm not going to read the whole entire thing because it's too long. 2. Do something you know that calms you. One man I know told me that when he was stressed, he played solitaire on a laptop computer. He took it with him everywhere. It says it was a big surprise when he announced he played more than 1,400 games, most of which he won. 3. Don't awfulize. Awfulizing means thinking about all the terrible things that could possibly happen and reacting as if they could already happen or could all happen at once. I think I do that. Anxiety and depression, common emotional states in AS. Anxiety is the most commonly reported feeling by people with AS. It is not surprising that people with AS experience chronic anxiety. For some with AS, coping with the confusion of the NT world, frequent change in the demands of life, such as work and school, can be unusually stressful. Fears of not getting it right or not being able to cope take their toll and create feelings of anxiety. Feeling of failure, hopelessness or helplessness lead to feelings of depression. The experience of rejection, which is not uncommon to AS, may result in anger, which then can become depression if it is turned inward. Other sources of depression for people with AS may become about as a result of a person with AS not being able to live up to the potential because of difficulty communicating or because of any of the other problems associated with AS. These negative emotions can take their toll on individuals with AS and may have negative health consequences. I wanted to read something in here, and I have to read it on my own first, and then mark it with a pen. Had to do with change and being overwhelmed. Here it is. It's right here. It's another part of the book. It's page 172. The stress of coping with new situations. This is very, very important. Coping with new stressful situations on top of the chronic stress they experience often result in some people with AS not having much stamina as their NT partners. For Kevin, the 250-mile trip over unfamiliar roads and sleeping in a hotel left him very tired. The idea of shopping and helping Sandra make decisions about furniture was more effort than he could bear. And there's a story here. If you want to get the book or you want to rent the book, you can. How can the person with AS cope with anxiety? If you have AS, it is important to understand and recognize that there is a need to pace yourself if you experience a lot of anxiety. If it's helpful, for example, to understand that certain circumstances, such as having to be around a large number of people, finding your way in a strange town may be extremely demanding for you because there is so much stimulation to process. There is so much about the situation that is unknown, it's impossible to anticipate what you'll have to handle next. It's important to tell your partner or companions if you start feeling tired or overwhelmed. Being exhausted greatly increases the chance of miscommunication and misunderstanding, and for someone with AS, there is a risk of extreme emotional reaction that may include lashing out at others. If both of you understand that coping with AS can be very tiring and that dealing with a new situation will probably intensify your anxiety, you and your partner can take this into account when making plans. I don't have time to read the other part, so I'm going to leave it at that. And I would suggest just rent the book if you don't have the money. But a little story back in 2009, I believe it was. Because I graduated with my bachelor's in 2009 in information systems, and the capstone class was project management. But 2 classes before that, I had systems design and analysis, and I applied for a job with the government. It was a position in Washington, D.C., and it was for systems analysis or something like that. Systems analyst, I think. And it was like an internship in Washington, D.C., a 3-month internship. I got a call. I got an interview over the phone. And the man was more concerned with, can you tell me the stages of the SDLC, the System Design Life Cycle. And I had to get my book out because I just completed project management. And project management is a little bit different. You know the kind of questions I asked him? How do I get to the job site? Is someone going to pick me up? What time do I start in the morning? What time do I end in the afternoon? Who do I report to? This guy really didn't know a lot. He said, I don't know who you report to. You'll find that out here. I'm like, what? What do you mean you don't know who I report to? You don't know who I report to? That doesn't sound right. And he said, oh, how you get here? I said, how do I get there? I got to get there some way. Is someone going to pick me up? And he said, no, you're going to have to find your own way. And I go, find my own way? And he said, usually people take a bus. And I'm just like, you want me to get on a bus to a city I've never, ever been in and find my way around that city to get to, I don't know if it was probably not the White House. I doubt that. But somewhere in Washington, D.C., get on a bus because we were the place that for this position, if we got the internship, we'd stay in the dorms of George Washington University, and we'd have to get our own transportation, the bus usually. I didn't know anyone in Washington D.C. I was more concerned with how am I going to navigate around the city. I don't know that city. It's a big city. I don't know how many buses they have. I have no idea how the buses run out there. I know how they run out here. They run out here every hour and 15 minutes. Not every 15 minutes. Not every